you to think about where you take a seat during the day. Now, this is not just a chair, okay? It could be a chair, but it's where you linger. Where do you stay? Where do you naturally frequent? Or where do you hang out? Where do you live? When you're caught in maybe a stressful circumstance, where do you naturally drift off to in a pleasant daydream? Okay, etc. It might be, let me just give a couple examples. It might be sitting at a table. Okay, picture yourself just at that table. What kind of smells, sights, sounds, feelings that table brings out? It might be positive, negative. Picture in a gym or on a beach. Feel how it changes you depending on where you picture yourself? At a club, maybe sitting in a church, a business, maybe in this uncomfortable chair I'm on right now. Maybe it's a school, or maybe you're in a chat room, or in a checkout cart, or a social platform. Where we take a seat, you can see as you picture these different things, it brings about different tasks in your mind, different feelings, it changes. You can feel the fluctuation of, I need to do this, I don't need to do this. You can feel that, can't you? Maybe it's behind something. Maybe you're sitting behind an instrument. Maybe you're behind or in front of a movie, or you're behind a tool. Maybe you're a tradesman and you're behind your craft. And maybe the feelings of safety swell up in you far more, or creativity or imagination swell up far more than when you picture yourself maybe sitting, at a desk. Picture yourself maybe behind a book or at a meal. Maybe when you picture where you're sitting throughout the day, think about, are you somewhere you wish to be? That could be the case. It could be kind of like a fantasy. It could be a dream. It could be alternate reality. We love to play in alternate realities today. Maybe it's a vocation you're in. Maybe it's a vocation you're dreaming that you have. Maybe it's a different identity. You're hoping to be something that you're not. Maybe it's in love. You're picturing yourself. We tend to be fascinated or in love with love. We get in that place where everybody disappears except for that person that's the object of our affection, right? Maybe you're picture yourself somewhere not where you wish to be or you are. Maybe picture someplace you have to be, okay? Like the DMV, all right? We sit there and picture what that brings about in you. It brings an anxiety up in me, okay? It brings out a lot of emotions that are not good, okay? Maybe picture a waiting list that you're on. I mean, really in life, like all of us are taking the proverbial seat of waiting in some area of our life. Maybe we're waiting on a baby. Maybe we're waiting on a job. Maybe we're waiting on to graduate. Maybe we're waiting on that call, whatever that call might be, for an opportunity, to hear about but maybe it's a friend that's in prison, or maybe it's a ruling, a court ruling. Maybe it could be a variety of things. Maybe it's a spouse you're waiting on. You're single and you're waiting for that perfect someone. Maybe it's that tax return, right? That brings about a lot of stuff. But those are places you might have to be in. You can't choose your way out. And as you picture yourself in all these seats, I wanted to take you just to a bunch of different settings, just so that you'd kind of see how where you see yourself sitting or dwelling or frequenting, it transports you somewhere, doesn't it? And when we picture ourselves sitting someplace, whether it's where we have to be or where we want to be or it is where we are, we stay, we linger there. And as humans, we tend to avoid seats or sitting down in dreams or thoughts that would make us feel uncomfortable. So we sit down in places where we want to be, even maybe when we're in seats where we have to be. Okay? We do this either in reality or fantasy. Okay? And this brings about a lot of either perceived positives in our life or perceived negatives about where it actually transports you. Think about the positives we seek when we think about where we're sitting or where we want to be or sit. We might view it as an escape. That might be a positive thing. A place where we go to be that hero, right? We get the fame, we get the recognition, we get the payoff. We win the trophy, the prize, we defeat the villain, that proverbial thing that draws everybody to the falsity of video games, right? A visualization of where you get what you want. Body, mind, spirit, whatever, mind, whatever. Okay? Or maybe it's a perceived negative. When you're transported into a particular seat, it transports you into the mundane. Maybe drudgery sitting at that desk, or maybe it's shame. Going back to that place where somebody really wronged you and you sit that memory and it brings up all of that emotion again. Maybe it's fear. You sit someplace and you fear you're going to lose your position, whether in school or popularity, or maybe it's a business, or maybe it's in your home. Maybe you're sitting behind your checkbook and you're sitting there looking at your checkbook, and normally you'd sit at your table and you'd feel completely comfortable, but right now you're sitting there looking at your checkbook, feeling like you're going to lose your resources, feeling like stressed out over security. Where we think we're seated tends to transport us, and it tends to affect what we believe we're becoming. It tends to kind of press in at that identity level, like that prison did with me. It tends to cause us to question or philosophize or draw up issues that we normally wouldn't in another time and space. And again, those can be positives, those can be negatives. Maybe the positive is in that space you feel respected. Maybe you feel loved. Maybe you feel strong. Maybe you feel fearless, peaceful, rest, invincible. Okay? But again, maybe it's negative. Maybe you sit in that seat and it draws up feelings of anger, like I talked about, shame or fear or cowardice or discontent, impatience, stressed out, anxiety, worried. You lose faith. When you think about everything I've said up to this point, every seat we take has two things in common. Everything we transport ourselves to, everywhere we go, it has two things in common, and it's temporary, it's not forever. It's imperfect, not perfect. So we can be sure that it's only going to take us there for a time and a place, and that when we're there, it's never going to fully fuel us either positively or negatively. It's always going to fuel us imperfectly, whether that be positive or negative. It's never going to give us that perfection, that guarantee that we're wanting, and it always holds you out one promise, and that promise is fleeting hope. So there's always going to be a fluctuating hope. Sometimes it's going to feel good, sometimes it's going to feel bad. That's kind of what I experienced in that prison, and that's kind of the picture I want you to paint. I want you to think about that when we approach the context of the book of Ephesians. Because Ephesians is going to start off with the idea of where we sit. And Paul is going to weigh for us very, very eloquently, is that seat temporary? Is that seat imperfect? Or is that seat perfect? Is it eternal?